Okay, I better roll with this while it's still fresh in my mind. What I have is a baked geometry here of a very simple sculpture. Now, I will tell you that I extruded it surface, or offset the surface in two directions in Rhino, so I wasn't actually doing that in Grasshopper. I have scripts in Grasshopper snippets that will do that, but this is an interplay between Rhino window, Grasshopper, and the math that's tucked into these geometries. But basically, I'm playing with conditionals, and I took this from a RhinoScript syntax online, but I totally started to play with it. And as I brought it in, I wasn't happy just having it output conditionals to build a surface, which was actually pretty cool to start with. I may have had it in here, but I took it out. I removed it, so I'll just leave it out. And there's no mesh. Interestingly enough, the mesh to this is actually pretty dry and not so exciting to look at right there. So mesh is never, if you're playing with this mesh, you probably want to go in the nerves curve so you get something a little funkier when it comes to it like this. And I'll show you exactly what I did. I went in Rhino.geometry is RG and maths, and I built a list B, and I put it through a range, but I decided I wanted my range to be parametric, so I put it in X range and Y range here, and I did a nested loop once again. I didn't mind taking a percentage of 50% of those to define X at times, but in doing so, those X and Y, of course, are not the X and Y range down here, so I had to bring those in. And I decided instead of hard coding in, say, having 100 in my range for I and 100 in my range for J, I thought, well, let's use those as variables and multiply them by percentages as opposed to have them set as, from 20 to 0 to 20 or 20 to 40 or 40 to 60, 60 to 80. So all you have to do is convert those to percentages, and then you can really start working with your input parameters. So that's a little subtlety, something to get down and start playing with, and that's all I really did. In the end, in doing so, it allowed me to pick and choose some geometries. I also like to sort my list of points, which causes a little bit of havoc. If you see, I grab these points into here without ordering them. You get a totally different form because it gets out of order. But even this mesh extruded, if you were to bake that and go in here and say, okay, I'm okay with taking that surface and baking it into my, obviously I can't bake while there's a turntable on. Let's bake in here and throw it in. You've got a nice form. It takes a second to bake, and there's a lot of impurities and crazy stuff happening here, just like there was in the little snippets. But now that we have something here, we could just basically go in and do offset surface. I think it's set to both sides into 0.2. So it's the same as what it was, and I'm okay with that. It's just going to take a second to load. Let's leave our grasshopper window once it's done pushing those curves in each direction, and you can see that you have something here that's kind of a ghosted form and awkward, but it's not bad to consider taking that to print and seeing if you could actually get it into a mesh or and fix it up in Mesh Mixer if you had to. It's a bit of a mess. I mean, I wouldn't really want to spend my whole day on it. Let's go into surface analysis and do our zebra just for a second and give it a second to load up, and there we go. We can leave. You've got another pretty decent form that's there. It's Ella's birthday. I didn't mean to rotate it. Of course, some people like to do stuff in the Rhino window. I try and do as little as possible, but I have realized that with the complexities of offsetting surfaces to normals, I've built so many really cool. Let me just put this in turntable while we're talking because I'm kind of excited about it. Just a slow rotation. The script is playing with other people's scripts, converting it to Rhino geometry by a simple 0.3D change here. It doesn't take much, and you can see in this series I've done very little what I set my mind out to do, but in doing very little and opening up the door on this, I'm learning and I'm digging deeper and deeper into the maths to end up with these geometries. Once again, I have tons of snippets when it comes to extruding surface along normals. They all work, but if you grab one like that and bring it in here, it can be a real nightmare. You've brought in a whole script that's dealing with another geometry of offsetting a pretty simple surface, and I have those for people that are interested in those. They're all over GitHub. But instead, they really want to take an untrimmed surface. So if you took that one and put it in here, I'm sure it's going to do something totally funky crazy, and there it is. And that would push me to go down to the end of this script, grab my brep, and grab that and throw it into a bake. And of course, I don't have to do that in Rhino now. It'll just take a moment playing off of that with my same script, probably taking my turntable out so something will happen. I'm pretty sure I could have baked it while it was still in turntable. Probably not. We've been through that before. Um, yeah, it's just trying to do a technical drawing. So now we have another ghosted form that if I put it into analysis, we'll draw this one into, a draft angle analysis, which could be fun. Yeah, we've got a totally other monster here as we pull it out and have a peek at it. But this is really the way to start creating some interesting geometries and think about what you have. There's problems and there's impurities, but as a maker and as a sculptor, this may be where you want to go mathematically. I know it's definitely where I want to go, and I'm just going to pull this script back up so we can see the whole thing. Yeah, one of which that produces a surface that's totally worth playing with. You can take that surface out and bake that, and I'll just do that for one more time because I know I did it pretty fast, at least in my mind. Let's take a little bake. Let's grab that surface. Let's slide it back over here, and at this point, you could take that surface and throw that into an extrusion through offset surface again. So I'll just do that again in Rhino. It's up to you to decide if you want to do that. I'm happy with the set at 0.2. I like my settings. I'll just leave it, load it up, and you're left with a different offset because it's obviously different than the offset that it was the one setting grasshopper. And there it is, repeating that. So I just did it twice. But a nice little project. A little bit of Python, a little bit of Rhino, a little bit of scripts that were already there in Grasshopper, and definitely playing with all of this to dig deeper and deeper and deeper into the maths. And when this becomes where your mind is focused, I think you're so far down the rabbit hole, it's almost pointless to want to make an iteration. But you've got to find a reason to be. This is definitely a focus, is to move that back into fabrication and casting methods. Hope people take an interest. 6 minutes of me overviewing it, and I'll continue with a script that's moving further into conditionals of patterning, which should be pretty fun, and that's going to draw us into some nested loops again with the else if statements, which should be pretty fun, just like what we did, but you'll see a little change in what I'm doing. Thanks again.